Okay, our next task is to create the controller for our new feature. So inside controllers, I'm just going to create a new file, and it's going to be a class, and we'll call it likes controller, and press return. And inside here, we're going to derive from the base API controller, and we're going to inject our new likes repository. So we're going to say I likes repository, and we'll just call it likes repository. And then we can go ahead and create our endpoints. So the first one's going to be an HTTP post. And then we're going to specify target user ID. And that's going to be a type of int. And then we're going to say public async task of action result. And we're not actually going to return anything from this. This is kind of tricky to get the exactly correct type of method that we use here, because this is going to be a toggle, and it's either going to create a resource in our database or it's going to delete a resource in our database. So I'm going to use an HTTP post, but it's not really 100% accurate based on the functionality that's going to be working inside this endpoint. So we'll call it toggle like, and we'll specify int and say target user ID. And then inside here, and first of all, we need to get hold of the source user ID, the user that is liking the other user. That's going to be our current user. So we'll say var source user ID, and we'll set this equal to user and get user ID. And then we'll just check to see if the user is trying to like themselves, and we'll say if the source user ID is equal to the target user ID, we'll just return a bad request and say you cannot like yourself. Well, of course they can, just not in our application. There's nothing wrong with someone liking themselves, just not in our app. And then we're going to check, or we're going to get the existing like if it exists. So we're going to say var existing like equals await, and we'll say likes repository and get user like, and we'll pass in the source user ID and the target user ID. And then we'll check for this to see if it's null. So we'll say if existing like is equal to null, then we'll open curly brackets and we'll say var like equals new user like, and we'll just specify the source user ID is equal to the source user ID, and the target user ID is equal to the target user ID. And then below this we'll say likes repository and add like, and pass in the new like. And below the if statement we'll say else, and this means we're effectively removing the like, so it operates as a toggle. We'll say likes repository and delete like and pass in the like, or not like the existing like. And then we'll say if await and likes repository dot save changes, then we will return OK. Again, not 100% accurate because of the nature of this endpoint. We're not going to return a created at response here because we might be deleting something. So we'll just return an OK in this case. And below this we'll say return bad request and say failed to update like. And we need two more endpoints inside here. We'll need an HTTP GET, and I'm just going to call it list as the root parameter, and we'll say public async task, and we'll say action result, and this is going to return an IEnumerable of type int, and we'll just say get current user like IDs, and we will return OK and then say await and likes repository and get current user like IDs, and we'll just pass in our user and get user ID. And then we'll create one more endpoint. We'll have an HTTP GET with no root parameters, and we'll say public async task. That's going to return an action result of type IEnumerable and member DTO, and we'll call it getUserLikes. And this is going to take as a parameter the string of the predicate. And because this is not a root parameter, it's not listed inside here, and it's a string, then the default location that our API controller is going to look for this value, which is required because we haven't made this string optional, then it's going to look in the query string for this. And if we do not provide the predicates, then we're going to get an error when we try and reach this endpoint. And we'll say var users equals await and like repository, and we'll say get user likes, and we'll pass in the predicate as the first parameter, and then the user dot get user ID as the second parameter, and then we'll just return OK and the users. So we've made quite a few code changes here, so I'm not even going to contemplate the fact that .NET Watch could possibly run okay for this. So we've got the terminal saying, do you want to restart our app? So I'm just going to say yes and let the app restart. And once it has restarted, let's go and test our work in Postman. So inside section 14, we have a number of different requests to do with liking a user. And first of all, let's log in as Lisa and save the token, which is going to be saved to user.token or just called token. So I'll click send and we get Lisa's token. And then we've got a post request to add like for Todd from Lisa. And Todd has a user ID of 6 in my database. But if you've done something different and you've got different seed users, then just go back to one of the earlier requests and see which user ID you want to like. And I'm just logged in as the user with the ID of 1, effectively is going to like the user with the ID of 6. And if I click send, then we get a 200 OK. And if I go down to the get liked users request, so we go to API likes with the predicates equals liked, then I'm sending up the header with the token, so that's going to be Lisa. And what I'd expect to see inside here is one user that this user has liked. And I can see that Todd, user with the ID of 6, is the one in this list. And if I click on get liked users liked by, then we've got the predicate of liked by, and I click send, then currently this is an empty array, and so should this third one be for get liked users mutual. This should also be an empty array. So I'm going to log in as Todd and save the token to env, and this is going to save it as Todd token, so I'll click send. And we've got that token, and we've got a post request to add like for Lisa from Todd. And we can see that we've got the bearer token going up as Todd token here, so I'll click send. And again, we get the 200 OK. And these requests are all logged in as Lisa, so if I click get liked users liked by and click send, now we see Todd is inside there. And if we get liked users mutual, because Todd has liked Lisa and Lisa has liked Todd, then I should see Todd inside here as well. And if I remove the like for Todd, which means effectively clicking on the same request again and click send, then what I should find that Todd no longer appears in this request, and if I click send, then he's removed, and that should be the same for the mutual one as well. Okay, that looks good. And now we're ready to move on to the client side of things.